Hi, and welcome to Getting Automated. Today, I'm going to talk about how I use automation to qualify Reddit posts and drive revenue in my own business. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So I have a quick presentation to go over to give you some context on why this is important, why you should listen to me, and how this all works. And we'll go ahead and get into the actual setup and demo of this workflow. So as a quick background, I'm Hunter Sneed and the creator of Getting Automated. Getting Automated is a brand that's focused on educating small and medium-sized businesses on how to leverage the power of automation in their business to increase efficiency, drive revenue, and really kind of just see what automation can do in the context of them and propel their business forward. I'm also the founder of a consultancy called WorkflowZ that goes and actually provides those implementation services for businesses that don't want to go and build it out themselves. So I'm sure people are asking why Reddit, and I totally get that. Reddit's not typically seen as a place that is particularly friendly towards soliciting business of any kind. That said, there is a lot of value in Reddit. Really, kind of what I break it down to is there's niche communities of people that are really passionate about a given topic, and they're already in that community engaging. A lot of them that I often participate in is automate, automation, the N8N, the Zapier, and the Make.com subreddits. They're all fantastic places with people that are curious and hungry to learn on how to best use these platforms for their own personal use case or sometimes even for a business use case. Beyond that, there's lots of different questions asked and diverse topics. Need I say less there? And lastly, there's a lot of qualified engagement. There's a lot of people that put great effort into their posts and actually go ahead and provide the proper resources and context for you to be able to be successful with helping them. So one of the things I really want to touch on is this is helping without selling. That's my whole strategy and philosophy on Reddit. I'm never talking about my actual consultancy and what I do there. Rather, I'm just trying to help people out and answer their questions. I strongly believe that if someone's helping you out, that you're much more likely to engage with that person and potentially even work or buy from them. And so that's my whole philosophy on Reddit, is don't sell, just try and offer really genuine, thoughtful advice and domain expertise that helps that person get past whatever it is they came and are looking to solve for. So what does that actually look like? It's really broken down into 4 steps. It's discover, it's qualify, it's help, and it's build trust. And a lot of times that rinses and repeats. But essentially, I'm looking for posts that I think are a good candidate to be able to answer questions around and be helpful with, that is well within my kind of realm of expertise. Then from there, I ensure that there's the right level of effort. There's a lot of posts on Reddit that are low effort, low quality. And those are the ones that I typically want to engage in because it tells me that whoever's posting about it probably isn't all that serious about it. Then from there, I go ahead and I write really constructive posts. I never use ChatGPT or anything like that to construct the post. I'm always writing it from my own tone and my own authentic background knowledge on that to ensure that it feels genuine and that it's something that, again, is actually helpful based on the expertise that I have within this space. And then from there, I always ask and always offer to follow up and help in any way that I can. So sometimes that comes in the form of follow-up questions. Sometimes that's DM. Sometimes that's another Reddit post that they reach back out to me on later. Really, I just want to be a resource that's available to help the community and try and support in any way that I can. So one of the things that's tough about this, though, is that qualifying Reddit posts takes a fair amount of time. So my typical process and procedure before was to go across anywhere from 5 to 10 Reddits in a given day and check for recent posts that came up and to see if it's something that A, I should respond to, B, have the domain expertise, and C, have the time to actually respond to. And so going ahead and qualifying those and having what felt like a million tabs open to try and actually go back to them and, again, answer was something that just didn't feel all that sustainable for what I was looking to do. So I figured there had to be a better way to do this, and I wanted to introduce some automation around it. So I broke it down into a couple steps, and again, we'll get into the workflow build out in just a second, but I wanted to highlight kind of the high-level steps that I took to actually go ahead and do this. So while Reddit has a native integration with Make, the integration is somewhat lacking. It's not something that has the full capabilities of what the actual Reddit API offers. And so we had to go about it a little bit differently. And so that looks like using some HTTP modules and whatnot to actually construct this. And again, this will make a lot more sense in just a minute. But essentially, what we need to do is we need to get a Reddit token. Then from there, we have to outline what are the Reddits that are subreddits that we actually care about. So I've compiled a list of subreddits that I was checking often and have engaged in the past that I thought could be a good fit. Then from there, what I'm doing is I'm actually iterating over all the subreddits that I'm looking to try and get the recent posts from. I'm actually then evaluating the content using generative AI, specifically OpenAI in this case. And then from there, based on that evaluation, I'm going ahead and I'm writing to Airtable and saying whether or not that piece of content, really specifically a post, was a fit and whether or not I should respond to it. And that evaluation is being saved in an Airtable, so that way I'm not reevaluating the same post that I've already evaluated. And then last but not least, if there's a post that's really, really particularly relevant to me, or I think it's something that I'm looking to try and answer or really get engaged on, I've also got an optional notification where I can use Twilio to send me a text anytime that this workflow is triggered and I actually see that there's something that's a good fit. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into Make. And I'll go ahead and demo what this actually looks like and how you can build this for yourself in your own business. All right, so what I want to start with is starting out here in Airtable. I love Airtable, and I thought this was a perfect use case for when to use it and how to actually track kind of a database of individual posts as well as interesting Reddits that I want to go ahead and evaluate against. So what I've done is I've created myself a new Airtable database. And within this, I've got two different tables. I've got a table here that's really simple. All it is the subreddit names of the different subreddits that I want to iterate over and see what the posts are in and perform evaluations against. And then in here, what I've got is a qualified Reddit post table. So I've added a number of different columns to this. You can add whatever you want. But essentially what I've done is I've added a couple of different columns, one specifically for the ID, which is the key of the post. That's going to be unique to every post. And then I've got some kind of relevant metadata here that I want to go ahead and store for each post. So that's, again, subreddit, post title, content, some qualification scores and qualification analysis, basically telling me whether or not that should be a qualified post. And then why it was a qualified post. So I have a scale of anything 7 or 8 and above is a qualified post, and it tells me how it actually made that evaluation, the evaluation status, again, some other information, and whether or not I've been informed about this actual post. So for ones that are super pertinent, and for example. So why don't we go back and we'll talk through kind of what this looks like. Now, this is a pretty simple linear workflow here. I'm in make.com for any of those of you that aren't familiar. It's by far my favorite platform for simple and straightforward automations. And I think it's something that is a perfect use case for something like this. So what I've got here is, again, a couple different make modules to go ahead and actually do this whole process. So the first one I've got here that often scares a lot of people is the HTTP module. And what I've done is I've actually taken this module, and the reason I'm using it is, again, Reddit's API offers a lot of functionality, but if we go ahead and we actually look at what Reddit can do within Make, it's pretty limited. There's not that many actions that it can do when you look at what you have as options here versus what you have as options in the actual Reddit documentation. You can see there's so many more methods here and options for what you can and can't do. And surprisingly, what's interesting is Make doesn't actually have the option here to make a custom API call, which a lot of other modules do. So for this case, the Reddit module really wasn't a great fit. And so what we're going to do is we're going to actually use the API directly within Make. So let me go ahead and delete that. And like I said, to start, we've got this get Reddit token. So essentially what this is making an authentication request to Reddit to go ahead and get a token back. And so there's a couple things that we're passing in here. We're passing in this URL, as well as what is called a base64 basic authentication request. And so what this is doing is this is combining both the client ID and client secret, and it's going ahead and using that and encoding it in base64 to actually get us a token back that we can then go and use to interface with Reddit after this initial authentication call. What I'll do is I'll actually also provide this make.com scenario as well, the blueprint, for you to be able to download as a link within this video. So don't worry about screenshotting or stopping throughout. Again, you're welcome to download this in the description. So again, getting an actual token. And so why don't I go ahead and run this real quick and just show you what the output is. So what this is going to be is it's going to be giving me an output that's my access token right here. This access token is what I'm going to use for all subsequent calls to Reddit for any sort of information. So now what I need to do that I have my access token is I want to go and I want to get my targeted subreddits that I had outlined in my Airtable. So that separate table that I had, I'll flip back to it right now, right here. With all of these, I want to go ahead and get all of these. So let me go back to make and do that. And let's make sure that we've got everything right. Again, it's passing in the Reddit lead identifier table and the targeted subreddit, and it's just passing back the names. I had it set to 1, but let me go ahead and set it to 15 so it returns all the records. We'll save it, and we'll go ahead and we'll run this module only. And so as you can see, I've gotten the names back of all the subreddits that I was interested in actually analyzing. Looks like there's 11 of them. That's perfect. I'm happy to work with that. So what I need to do now is I need to go and actually use an iterator in make.com. And basically what that is for people that have any sort of development backgrounds, that's basically a for loop. And so what I'm doing is I'm running a loop on every single item, in which in this case, it's every single subreddit that I want to go ahead and get posts from. And so what I'm doing here is I'm taking the name from this module right here, and I'm passing it in to my iterator. And so then what happens is I've got this get Reddit post. And so this is going to return the most recent posts within those Reddits that I'm passing in. And so I've got a different URL up here. And basically what I'm doing is where you see name, I'm passing in the variable, which is actually the name of the subreddit. And I'm running a GET request. And again, I'm passing in that access token that we got in the very first step. And I am going and I'm making a request to get those posts. And so I'll go ahead and what I'll do is I'll actually run it up to that point. So let me just unlink this for a second so we can see only up to that point. So you'll see I'm getting multiple responses back. I've got 11 because I've got 11 different subreddits that I'm interested in here. If we go into each operation, what we can do is we can expand this data field. And this is going to have, we got to click on a couple of things. This is going to have 25 posts of the most recent posts on that subreddit. So you can go ahead and it's in there, but it's really pre-nested. All the information around, like this is specifically the AI BizOps. And it has a self-text, which is really just the post contents, and a bunch of other metadata about that actual post. And so really what I care about is the title of the post. I care about the self-text, and some other content that I want to go ahead and make that evaluation against. But this here has returned really what I need to be able to make that evaluation. So what I'm doing now is where I showed here that I had to go and click down into a couple different levels by data, children, all of these. I have another iterator. And basically what this is doing is it's going and iterating over every child, which is really just a post in this case, in my get recent Reddit's post module. And so here it's data, children. Really what that is, clicking data, and then clicking children. So I can go ahead and actually delete this out and just show you this is all it is. And so again, that's iterating over every post. So what I want to do now is, while this is a pretty cheap evaluation in terms of OpenAI credits go, I still don't want to reevaluate posts that I've already evaluated. In this case, I went ahead and cleared out my table for this. So you'll see there's no qualified Reddit posts in here. So this actual table right here, or this actual check, will not actually find any matching records, and that's totally okay. But when I run this next time or run this on a schedule, it's going to see that I've already evaluated a number of posts, and it's not going to go ahead and reevaluate those, and it's not going to then burn more OpenAI credits. So I've got this filter here, again, that checks on that. It basically checks to see that there is more than one response returned. And if there is, what it's doing, or if there is, it will go ahead and do the evaluation. If there's not, it will not actually do an evaluation. And that bundle is based on a query that's happening here within Airtable. I've got my formula where I'm checking if the ID of the Reddit post already exists in the ID column in the table. And again, all those Reddit IDs are unique. So let me go ahead and we'll go ahead and show you kind of how we're actually making this evaluation. So I've got two different prompts here. I've got a system prompt and I've got a user prompt. So the system prompt typically is kind of your background context that you want to tell ChatGPT, or really in this case, OpenAI's GPT-4, for context about the actual post and kind of what its job is to be doing for you. So I've given it some background context that it's a Reddit post qualification assistant and that it's looking to go ahead and actually evaluate whether or not it's applicable to my business. And so I list out some of the stuff that I do, such as business automation, workflow, optimization, so on and so forth. And then I have it evaluate a couple other things. So again, engagement potential. Is this something that is worth engaging in? Authenticity, audience, solutions, clarity and specificity, legality, self-promotion. And I ask for it to go ahead and provide me a JSON response back. I want to pause here and say that this is one of the most important parts of this whole thing. This JSON response makes it really easy for me to parse stuff out later. And by giving this reference payload and saying that I want a JSON response, what I can do is I can specify JSON mode within OpenAI's module here, and it will return that response in JSON, which is a structured data format, as opposed to just raw text that's a lot harder to extract kind of different components out of. So let me scroll down. I've got no max tokens. A lot of this you can play with the numbers on, but these are all fine defaults. But what we can do is I don't actually even have it on parse JSON mode. I don't have it on parse JSON response. But I have it in a JSON response format. So it's not parsing it, but that's totally fine. So let me go ahead. I have my own parsing node here. Really probably don't even need that. Could just turn that on in the prior node, but I don't recall seeing that when I originally set that up. Anyway, so what's happening here is it's taking the response from that. It's parsing it into JSON. Again, could probably cut this out. And then what it's doing is it's actually going and creating the actual post or object with an Airtable. And so what I'm basically doing here is mapping the responses that I'm getting from each Reddit post, and I'm just passing it in here. So where it says get each subreddit post, I've got all the information for each post, and I just want to go ahead and pass it something like the subreddit to the subreddit field, the title to the title field, so on and so forth. And then what I'm also doing is I'm passing in the date in a specific format that's easy to then go and filter on within Airtable. I believe this is being passed in UTC, again, which is basically a date format that computers recognize and are comfortable with actually parsing and interpreting. So what I've got here is stuff around the qualification score, qualification analysis, and evaluation status. And looking back, I realized I didn't go into kind of what that actually looks like. So let me go back here and talk about that real quick. So basically the way it works is I'm rating on a scale from 1 to 10 whether or not this post is a fit based on all of those factors. It's not perfect given kind of the non-deterministic nature of OpenAI and just generative AI as a whole, but it's still a lot better than me having to manually review. And so what it's doing is it's actually evaluating whether or not it's a fit, and it's also returning a true or false whether or not the post is over a 6. That's a number I've tweaked a little bit to see if a 6 is actually good enough or it should be a 7. So you may see some back and forth on that. And then really what I'm passing in for the actual message content is the title, the body, and the link So that way it has some context of what it's all about and kind of knows whether or not it's a good post based on that context. So back to Airtable here. You'll see some fancy logic in here. I don't mean to scare anyone, but basically what it's doing is it's checking if the rating is over a 7. So again, I actually went a bit higher than 6, went to a 7. And if it's greater than or equal to a 7, it's considered a qualified post and something that I should go ahead and treat seriously. But if it's less than a 7, it's disqualified. And so that's an easy way for me to rule in or rule out whether or not I should engage with the post. And then this is a little bit more complex again. And basically what this is doing is this is doing a couple different checks. This is checking when the actual post was made. A lot of times I find that when someone posts on Reddit, they're pretty time sensitive in when they expect their response. And so if you respond to a post that is more than a couple days old, especially more than a week old, there's a good chance they won't respond and that they've already moved on and kind of have forgotten about that. So what I'm trying to do is outline here, if it is later than 7 days, what I'll do is I'll say that it's stale. If it's not older than 7 days, and it also meets that qualification threshold of being over or greater than or equal to 7, I'm going to go ahead and put it as pending response. And if it's less than that, what I'm going to go ahead and do is set it to disqualified. So I've got kind of an evaluation status that says, hey, this post is worth responding to just based on content alone. But then there's also another evaluation status that says, yeah, it may or may not be worth responding to, but also it's old. So even that, take that into consideration, probably don't respond to it if it's too old. And then of course, the post URL. Right now, I'm not using the Hunter informs. That would be something that would come if I was going ahead and linking it up with Twilio. But right now, it's not something that I'm using and is all right for now. And then notes is something that I leave blank. That's something that I intend to fill out later based on my own evaluation of the post when I actually look at it within Airtable. And so then what I've got is I've also got a router here that if the fit's greater than 8, again, if it's a really pertinent post, that I can get a text message about it. Again, not something that I'm using. Most of the stuff is not that time sensitive, but really wanted to show the option of something that you can set that up if you want to. And basically what it could do is you could go ahead and have it send to a phone number and it'll go ahead and say that there's a new identified lead. So up to you, but just not something that's terribly useful for me right now. So let me go ahead and run this end to end and show you what this looks like. What this will do is this will run against 11 subreddits for the last 25 posts in each of those subreddits. So I'll go ahead and run it. And then what we can do is we can go ahead and flip over to the Airtable guide or Airtable contents, and you can see it all kind of happen in action. For this, I do want to note I'm using GPT-4o Mini. That really worked pretty well for my use case. I didn't see a need to use 4o. That said, if I find that the evaluation criteria and how it's actually going about it is something that's not meeting my standards, I may actually go ahead and bump it up to GPT-4o or something even like Claude Sonnet 3.5. But for now, again, it's meeting my needs, so I'm happy with it. So let me go ahead and we'll flip on over to the Reddit lead identifier. And as you can see, I've got a bunch of leads streaming in here, or a bunch of qualifications streaming in here for whether or not I should engage. And you can see most of these are stale. A lot of these Reddits aren't that active, especially some of the more niche ones. And so that's totally all right. But basically what I'm looking to do here is, again, if it's not stale, go ahead and kind of get an idea of what I should be responding to. And so this will keep adding up. You can see 31, 32, 33, so on. And what it will do is if there is something that is a good fit, and we'll give it just a couple minutes, and I'll go ahead and probably skip through this in a second. But what I've set up here is I've set up a Kanban table within, and really it's just a different view of that table that goes and actually shows me different posts that it recommends that I should respond to. So it says pending response. And so basically what that means is that the post is less than 7 days old, is a good fit, and it's something that I should respond to. And so I can click into this and see the actual post and see the actual link ID as well as the qualification score. And then I can go ahead and just click on this, and that will go ahead and take me over to Reddit, and I can go ahead and respond and write something thoughtful about whether or not I think about how I would actually go about trying to solve for this if I think it's a good fit. And then once I'm done with that, what I can do is I can actually go and take whatever post it was. I think it was this one. Let me see. Yep. And I can go ahead and drag it over to responded. But there might be posts that I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I don't necessarily agree with GPT-4o Mini's evaluation. And so what I can do is then drag it to disqualified. And then that's something where I don't have to worry about responding to it. But what I like to try and do is run this workflow every day. And that way I can see what responses are actually pending and what I need to go ahead and respond to go ahead and optimize some sort of potential business leads and outcomes. So let me go ahead and drag this back over here so that way I don't forget to respond to it later. And if we flip back over to make, what we'll do is we'll see that it's actually still running. And so this is going to go through, again, quick math, over 250 posts. And the first time it runs, it'll be a little bit longer of a runtime because your table's empty. But that second time it runs, this filter will catch any of the old posts that have already been evaluated and go ahead and bypass those. So it's something that's pretty quick after the first initial run. And again, you don't have to take 25 posts from Reddit. You could have that be much smaller based on your API call or much larger, really just up to you. So I'll go ahead and I'll let this run. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll flip back to the presentation and kind of talk about why this has worked for me and what the outcomes have been for my actual business. Okay, so we just went through the build out and demo of the make.com scenario that actually goes and puts all this into motion and dumps it out to a table. As you can see on this next slide, I've got a bunch of posts in here. And so it looks like it's at 129 right now. It's still running. And so what I can do is, again, I have kind of this mini database that I can check against and see how many posts I've responded to, whether or not they were worth responding to, kind of what the status is, and really kind of get a data-driven approach to, again, using my time wisely on how to engage on Reddit. So, we've already kind of went into the scoring system. Again, it's just kind of, I'm trusting GPT-4o 4o Mini to evaluate, and based on the criteria that I provided, what that score is. I'm sure there's probably a better way to go about this, but for now, this is totally solving my use case and problem, so I'm all right with it. Again, it's saving me a ton of time. This is something that I recently implemented, and instead of going and having to read through and ask myself, have I seen this post before? Have I not? Have I responded to it before? I'm able to go ahead and just look at this table on a daily basis, spend, 15, 20 minutes, maybe a half an hour if there's a lot of posts that I have to respond to, but really kind of get a good lay of the land of what's still pending and what still needs my attention that I can go ahead and be helpful within those communities. So what does this actually mean in real business terms? This approach has netted me over $25,000 in new business from going ahead and just being helpful. As you can see below, I've got posts from someone that reached out to me that was trying to automate their business. And funny enough, I didn't even respond to their post. I didn't even make a post, but they just saw how active I was with responding and engaging with people within the actual Reddits that I'm active in. And so they reached out and said, hey, I'm interested in going ahead and working with you. And that's a customer that the next day I was able to get on a call with, walk through what they were looking to do, and within a week had closed the sales process, and I'm now closing up a project around an end-to-end payroll and timesheet submission automation system that has really kind of driven a lot of operational efficiencies for their business. So what I want to recap here is there's a couple things that you can take away from this. One of them being that you can automate qualification. Qualification is something that does not need to be a manual activity if you know what you're looking for and you can define that criteria. You may need to tweak the criteria over time and kind of evaluate whether or not it's critiquing how you would critique. But generative AI is really a great tool for that, to at least do an initial evaluation, and then for you to kind of do a second pass on a much smaller subset of content than, again, hundreds of posts on Reddit across a bunch of different Reddits. The other thing here is I like to try and focus on quality. The responses that I make on Reddit are really kind of pretty targeted and pretty in-depth, and something that takes me some time. And so I don't really want to respond to low-effort posts. And so, again, if they're putting quality into their posts, I want to give them quality back, but I don't want to go ahead and really invest a lot of time and cycles of mine to respond to low-quality posts. And then lastly, this really kind of builds trust. And so this is not something that I do across just Reddit. This is something I also do on other forums. And it's something where it's very easy to develop a reputation for being kind of a knowledgeable expert in the space if you're able to answer people's questions in a thought-out way, again, without pushing kind of any sort of sales tactics or anything on them, and just trying to show that you are genuinely interested in the topic and would love to help out in any way that you can. And kind of really what this tells me most is that you can find business and you can find customers in unusual places. So for something like this, I wouldn't have thought that Reddit would be a good place to find business, but Reddit is, Facebook is. There's a number of different kind of niche communities across the internet that are great places to drive business. You just need to know where to look and how to best engage, and kind of how to maximize your time across those different communities. So that brings me to the end. Again, I will go ahead and I will share the actual workflow in a link in the video description. So feel free to download that for yourself and make any modifications that you see fit to go ahead and apply this to your own business. It should be pretty straightforward, but again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can reach me via email, via my website, or via kind of the contact information as well that I have on my YouTube. Hopefully this is helpful and shows you how I use automations for my own business to drive net new business. Automations typically have operational efficiency or ops perspective, but I want to show that that automations can also drive revenue and really be a game changer for your business. If this is something that's interesting, please subscribe and hit the like button. And also, if you'd love to work together, go ahead and reach out. I'd love to try and hear your specific business problem and how we could potentially work together to solve that. Thank you so much and have a great time automating.